Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use these scrap pieces of wood that I've had, and I'm going to turn them into shelf sitters. I've printed off my graphics off of my LaserJet printer. This will only work with a LaserJet printer, and you want to make sure that you reverse the text with this method. And I'm using my Varathane water-based crystal clear matte finish Varathane. This is what you need to use, a water-based Varathane. So I'm going to cut them out to size for my wooden pieces. The thing I really like about this method is you don't need to paint your surface. I do a lot of Mod Podge reverse transfer technique, and I find that it doesn't adhere as well to raw wood, where this technique works really well on raw wood. I am also going to show you this technique on painted wood. I used some acrylic paint from the dollar store, and it worked just as well on the acrylic paint as it did the raw wood. This technique will not work with an inkjet. The inkjet uses a different process of transferring ink, and it just does not work with this type. Okay, so the first step is to put a coat of this Varathane on the wood. Now you don't want a thin coat, you want quite a thick coat, and you want to cover the whole area where the paper is going to sit. You want to put enough on the piece of wood that the paper will adhere to it really well when you place it on it. And then you're going to take your paper and press it down on the wood, and this is where you have to have your reverse text, because if you don't, your letters will be backwards. So you want to push it down firmly, make sure it sticks right into that Varathane, rub it, get all the little air bubbles and the wrinkles, and if it doesn't stick, then you don't have enough Varathane, so you want to go back and put more on. And now I'm going to show you how it works with acrylic paint. This is just acrylic paint from the dollar store. I've painted it with one coat, and I'm going to do the same method that I did with the raw wood. You want to put a liberal amount of the Varathane over the whole surface where the paper is going to be. Make sure there's enough for the paper to stick to it really well, and then press it down and get all the bubbles and all the wrinkles out of it, and make sure it's adhered really well into the Varathane. And we're going to let it dry completely. The next step is to take a damp rag and just wet the whole piece of paper until you can start to see the words show through, and just rub away all the paper. And as you're rubbing away the paper, you will see the lettering will stay on the wood. Mine took about an hour to dry, but your drying times will be determined by how warm it is or how cold it is, your humidity. So you're just going to have to just see and just touch it and find out when it is completely dry. The thing I love about this technique is when you're using the Mod Podge for a transfer, you have to usually let it sit overnight. So this allows you to finish up your projects a little bit faster. And as you can see how crisp and clean those letters are. If you're going to try this technique, try it on a couple pieces of scrap wood so you get the feel of how it works and how well it adheres before you do your big project. And now I'm going to show you how well it transferred onto the acrylic paint. When you're doing this transfer, of course, you only want to do it on a surface that's painted a light color. If you're using a darker color underneath, of course, the lettering is not going to show through as well. Rubbing off the paper takes a little bit of patience, and if you have to dampen your finger and add a little bit more water, just do it. The trick is don't put too much water on, because then you're going to lift the Varathane up off of the wood. So it's kind of just a technique that you need to practice, but it doesn't take long and you'll get the hang of it. And you can see how nice and crisp the lettering is. I'm going to put a link down below in the description of what I use for Varathane, but you can pick it up at Home Depot or any building supply store. You just have to make sure that you buy the water base. It will not work with the oil base Varathane. You can also use this technique when you print off photos on your LaserJet printer. Just remember to reverse your image. Okay, now that they're all done, I'm going to seal them up with another coat of the Varathane. I love making these little shelf sitters. They look really great in tiered trays or on shelves, on cupboards. There's so many quotes that you can put on them. I have some of these quotes in my Etsy store if you want to head over and you can check that out. Anybody that comes there from YouTube, I have a code where you can save 50% on any of my graphics out of my store. Use the code SAVE50. Also, make sure you leave a comment below on whether you've tried this technique or you haven't, and I'll pick somebody after this is aired for a week to get a graphic for free out of my Etsy store. And there you have the cutest little shelf sitters using the Varathane polyacrylic sealer, water-based. I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial and it has inspired you to try out this technique yourself. Thanks for watching and have a great day.